Okay. It would be, sure, go ahead. Okay, I'll just ask for the record note, City Attorney Paul Martin is in attendance along with myself. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development. Name is Carlos Trejo. And then we have our City Council Liaison, Rick Knox. Right, Chairman, I'm just going to go over the procedures. This meeting is being done in person and virtual today. It is for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. To participate, whether it's in person or live stream, there's an opportunity for public comments prior to each vote. For those online, just raise your hand for recognition. It's on the lower part of the Zoom window, and we'll transfer you as a panelist and allow you to address the board. The chairman will request those transfers, and all comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes. When you speak before the board, we ask that you note your name and address. Those online, if you can have your video on when you speak. Anyone that's going to speak before the Zoning Board of Adjustment has to be sworn in. Public comments may be submitted in writing and read aloud by staff. For virtual attendees, there may be a short delay in the live stream, so bear patience with us on that. And at least for right now, we have one person that is online. And if you have any problems with the audio or video, again, just raise your hand. Once we get to the public comment section, we'll acknowledge you and transfer you over to speak to the board. In terms of the process, all reports and plans are accessible via the link on the agenda that was posted Friday. We'll start with a staff overview of the petition application. Then the applicants will present to the board themselves. After that, the chair will open it up to public comments. In the conclusion of public comments, the chairman will close the meeting, public hearing component of the meeting, and then the board will have a discussion and has the authority to make a motion. All votes are conducted as roll call votes in there. Again, the City Zoning Board of Adjustment has jurisdictions to decide appeals when there's an alleged error in the interpretation of the code, to assist in the interpretation of boundaries of the zoning map, to authorize and permit a public service, to permit the reconstruction of a non-conforming structure, and most importantly, to grant relief from the strict applications of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by using an area or use variance as allowed herein. And the area variance is what we are discussing tonight. In an area variance, the board may issue an area variance, that is to provide relief to a specific property only upon findings that the property has unique conditions. Not authorizing the variance would result in practical difficulties. That the variance would not unreasonably affect adjacent properties, and that the variance observes the spirit of the zoning ordinance and would satisfy the additional variance criteria, which are standards, light, air, public safety, the comprehensive plan and such. Please note that each of these are criteria for the board to consider. It's not a or, it's all and in the process. All right, Chairman, tonight's public hearing, as soon as you're set to begin, is going to be in regards to an appeal for 724 Cherry Tree Lane regarding a building permit for a pool and deck. So Chairman, the first aspect would be to commence the public hearing and then read the public hearing notice. I do have it on the video. Just Right, Chairman, the property grounds are zoned SR Single Family Zoning District. The purpose of the SR Single Family Zoning District is to protect and conserve existing areas of predominantly single family detached dwellings. The key issue before the commission is regarding the combined area of accessory structures on a property, which are governed under section 41590. The intent and purpose of the city regulating accessory structures is to complement the standards of the city's zoning districts, design guidelines, stormwater management, and community design review process. To establish reasonable dimensional and bulk standards to preserve light, air, and open space, to address the impact of stormwater generated on the site grounds and on adjacent properties, and to ensure development on land in the city occurs in a manner that protects, provides for, and promotes public health, safety, convenience, comfort, and general welfare of the residents of all of that. The property location is off of Cherry Tree Lane, which intersects with Ingle Lane, which is one of our primary residential collector streets in there. It runs south. The property is on the eastern side of Cherry Tree Lane. Here's an illustration of the location in there. It's part of the Harvest Acres subdivision, which consists of both Harvest Lane here on the east, which is to your right, and Cherry Tree Lane in there. Along the south property abuts the 100-foot wide City of St. Louis water right-of-way. And an aerial just for the location. This is the existing property. There are no improvements in the exterior except for a concrete patio here. I believe it's 159 or 189 square feet. And then there is a retaining wall on the back of the property grounds. And outside of that, the rest is open space. There is a rock drainage system that's been put together by at least two or three neighbors along here. But it's a good point. This property, however, does not have any on-site detention, stormwater detention. Shortly after the construction of this home, the city did adopt an ordinance that every single family property, every new single family property constructed in the city of Olivet has to provide on-site detention. And that means that they have to collect their roof water that's generated roof water and pipe that to a detention system that maintains it on site through a period of a storm and then slowly releases it out. This lot was constructed prior to the requirement for that detention and just releases stormwater, which probably just goes downhill.
What's the blue circular?
It's a trampoline,
Okay.
at least in the area. Here's views of the backyard of the property. Looking in two different directions. The property pretty much is within a comparable size of adjacent surrounding properties. The topography has been kind of flattened out in the backyard, as you can see with that retaining wall. There are no unique characteristics or natural features on the property grounds that are visible or submitted in the petition application. Okay, so again, going back to the code requirements, in no case shall the total square footage of the combined area of all accessory structures on a lot exceed 10% of the total lot area. That's under section 41592A1. Why do we do this? Well, it's the purpose and intent of accessory structures regulations to complement the standards of all the other codes, specifically the stormwater management and the residential redevelopment guidelines, to establish reasonable dimensional and bulk standards that we, the city has found within our values. These are reasonable standards to be put in place and limitations to apply to properties. to address the impacts of stormwater that's generated on the site grounds and how it impacts adjacent properties, and to make sure that development occurs in a manner that protects, provides, and promotes public health, safety, and convenience, comfort, and general welfare of Olivet residents. This petition, that has a lot area of 8,835 square feet. That means applying the code solely as currently written, they're allowed at 10%, 884 square feet of accessory structure improvements. The current permit that they have submitted has 1,544 square feet. So they're over, the calculation would be 17.5%. On August 2021, a variance was granted to this property owner, or to this property specifically. It applies only to this property, to increase the 10% to 13.75%. So they're permitted up to 1,215 square feet of combined total area of accessory structures. In January 2022, the City Council adopted Ordinance 2737, which only half of a full footprint would be counted towards the total square footage of the combined area of accessory structure. So that, based on this pool size, allowed an additional 326 square feet of pool. What's being proposed, including the pool and the improvements, totals 17.5%. That breakdown is there in that highlighted section of the permit plans. It's a pool deck of 744 square feet, a pool footprint of 651 square feet. But understand, in January 2022, the council amended our ordinances to only count 50% of that pool towards its to site coverage. So only of that 651 square feet, only 326 square feet will be counted as part of the total lot coverage. There's an existing patio that was 198 square feet. And then there's new concrete work in addition to the pool deck that totals 276 square feet. So just for clarification, the existing concrete patio, here's the house footprint. If you can follow the markers on the monitors. This is where the existing concrete patio is. Totals about 198 square feet. This is the new concrete area that would be added. That's at 270 square feet that was referenced last year on this table. And then the pool deck, the 744 square feet, is this area that surrounds the pool. And then the pool itself at 651 square feet. But remember, only 326 square feet of that pool is counted towards that total lot coverage. A note as previously, this application came in last April in 2021, in which the permit was denied because it exceeded the 10% at 884 square feet. In August 2021, a variance was granted that increased the maximum amount of accessory structure area from 10% to 13.75%, allowing 1,215 square feet. So in August 2021, the existing deck, which stays, it's existing, it was at 198 square feet. The pool deck was at 774 square feet, and the pool was at 595 square feet, totaling 1,567 square feet, or 17.7%. The commission, again, authorized the variance and increased the maximum square footage from the 884 to the 1215. In January 2022, the City Council adopted an ordinance that changed how we would calculate the pool footprint. But we would only count half of the pool footprint, which allowed, based on the August 2021 permit, an additional 326 square feet of pool area. So under the January council changes, the existing deck would be 198 square feet, no changes there. The pool deck would be 774 square feet, and half of the pool would be half of that 595 square feet. So the total area, again, counting just half of the 595, would total 1,270 square feet, or 14.4% of that. So it still wouldn't comply with the variance that was authorized at 13.75. The current review of the pool permit plan is proposed at 17.5%. And just kind of to go what is in that 17.5%. The existing deck, again, at 198. The patio and deck is now up to 1,020 square feet. So the patio and deck has increased in size. And the pool has increased in size from the 595 to 651, but we only count half of that pool. So now the total square footage of accessory structures is 1,544 square feet, or 17.5%. That's what the petition variance request is before you tonight. Okay. Okay, so again, here are the permit plans with the same criteria. Where the version that you have before you that's under review under the current building permit application is version 18. And again, we've outlined the square footages between the two. And there are the square footages I just went over. Regarding the distribution of land areas on different property sizes. Yes. Yes. In August 2021, after the board granted a variance to increase from 10% to 13.75%, the board also requested that staff approach the Plan Commission to discuss the combined area of accessory structures, and for the Plan Commission to have a review and forward a recommendation to the council to consider changes. The commission, that information was introduced to the commission in September and October. I think a final recommendation was to only count half of a pool footprint. And then that went to council. No, the council did not review, and nor did this council review any building or permit applications. This is the current one under the review. Yes. Okay. This is what we had in place. Okay. Sorry about that. This is a layout of the residential properties in the city of Olivet. And what this layout identifies are in the blue are lots that are 10,000 square feet or less in there. The pink identifies lots between 10 and 20,000 square feet. And the yellow identifies lots that are over 20,000 square feet. And just so you know, the key identifies the city of Olivet has 548 single family residential lots that are under 10,000 square feet. Chairman, just for the findings, just to note in here that this property is zoned SR single family residential. It's legally known as Lot 31 of the Harvest Acres subdivision. The home was built in 2013. The current owner purchased that house that same year in September. It's a legal lot of record. There's nothing unique or regarding the property in conformance with the SR district. It's considered legal non-conforming because it is under 15,000 square feet, but it's recognized as a lot of record. There is no on-site stormwater detention on this lot. Stormwater is just released on grade, and then it continues in a gravity flow downhill. They did receive a variance to increase the lot coverage from 10% to 13.75% in August 2021 from this board. The council adopted an ordinance to consider only 50% of a pool footprint in January 2022, as noted earlier. Both the square footage of the flat work and the pool size have increased since. There are no visible unique conditions with the subject property. It appears flat, no natural features, and it's rectangular in shape. And the placement of the pool is not being denied. It is the excess site coverage that is in question here. Board again has jurisdiction regarding an alleged error in the interpretation to interpret provisions of the zoning map to permit public service utilities to allow or authorize the reconstruction of a non-conforming building, and again, to grant relief from the strict application of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by issuing what we call an area variance as allowed herein. That herein is that there is a unique condition associated with the lot of record, that the strict application would result in practical difficulties as distinguished from a mere inconvenience and deprive the owner of reasonable use of property, and that the variance would not unreasonably affect adjacent properties, and that the variance would observe the spirit and zoning of the zoning ordinance, secure public safety and welfare, and do substantial justice. And finally, that the variance would satisfy the additional criteria under subsection 41650C, and that again is conformance to the city's comprehensive plan, and not impede on light, air quality, and ensure the public safety and welfare. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any specific, any additional questions. We do have the petitioner here. I also do have one member, one person online that may want to speak. Before doing so, just to enter some specific items into the record. The building permit application dated April 30th, 2021, along with the current plan set that's before you tonight titled B18. It also has a date of April 4th, 2021. The initial denial letter dated May 5th, 2021. The Board of Adjustment application received April 4th, 2022, including its attachments. The public hearing notice and affidavit of publication, it was published in the St. Louis County on April 27th, 2022, and you have the list of addresses that were notified within 180 feet, beyond the 180 feet minimum. The staff report before you dated May 12th, 2022, including its attachments, this PowerPoint presentation, and the City of Olivet Code of Ordinances, including Chapter 400 zoning regulations and the zoning map of the City of Olivet. Yes, make sure you press the button, especially since it's on Zoom.
Does this plan, as it stands now, fulfill the setback with the side yard setbacks? Is that not an issue, whatever this extended square footage plan?
Yes, the current placement and footprint locations of the decks, the hard surface areas, and the pool would all be compliant with the setback regulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Question? So they were here before. We gave them a 13.75% variance. They did get additional 14% because the city did reconfigure this. And now they're asking for 17.5% more. Right?
A maximum up to 17.5%. So they're
More.
It's not that they're asking for 17% more than what was already granted. It's not, it's to go up to 17.5%. So right now they're at 13.75. That's been authorized. They would want an additional 3.75.
Can we decide we gave them too much and go to 10%?
I think once the variance is granted, you can't.
I was just asking. Thanks. Anybody else?
Ask my questions.
Wait till we hear the petitioner as well. I can hear from the applicant if they can come up and be sworn in, please.
And again, Chairman, if you can just bear with me 1 second, since we're zooming, I need to just flip cameras. Sorry, 1 second. Bear with me 1 second. I appreciate your patience. Yeah. Yes. Thing is, we never remember until it's time to do it.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, thank you, sir.
So my name is Peter Bruntrager. I represent Evan Trainin and the Trainin family. And I'm the one who's provided you with the narrative in support of our petition here. I want to clarify a couple of things from the timeline because there were some things that weren't accurately relayed to you. So when the plans were submitted last spring, the initial request was for roughly 1,900 square feet of coverage added on. So there was the addition. Both plans were put up there. The plans themselves haven't substantially changed. The patio moved a little bit, but included in the previous request was the new concrete portion. It says 276 square feet. It was there, but the 198 remaining wasn't calculated in there. So the previous request, in order to be built as it was requested, would have required about 20%, as opposed to 17.5 or 13.75 or 10%. So the request itself has changed from 20% roughly to 17.5%. And that's because of the code changes and a little bit of shifting around from Mr. Tran and his contractor to try to make this request as reasonable as possible. So to that end, the real reason we're here and because I don't think there's any question that there's no change, there's no issue with stormwater runoff. I know that there was a note in there that said there wasn't any stormwater drainage requirement. That's something that Mr. Tran and his contractor and the city have been talking about. But Carlos has indicated there is no stormwater runoff issue as of now.
I'll note for the record, no, that's not what I implied. So that I can't.
Oh, I apologize. I
Okay,
thought that's what was told to me when we were talking about this. So can I ask, is there an issue with the stormwater?
Within the subdivision, yes, there have been stormwater issues within the subdivision as a whole.
No, I mean specifically with the plans that have been submitted this evening.
Okay, with the plans that have submitted, there would be required PMP detention on that site. And at least that isn't an issue, or they haven't contested placing the BMP requirements.
Sure,
Okay.
but it can be resolved based on how it was going to be built, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so other than that, the open air, obviously, this is all being built at or below ground level. The real issue is whether there's practical difficulties that are created by the code. So, and I know I spent a lot of time on this, and I don't mean to rehash things. I will summarize quickly. But the code itself limits ground coverage to 10% of the lot. That is citywide. And so the citywide, I know Carlos indicated there were 100 number of houses that were under 10,000 square feet, but in the city. But when it comes down to it, the average lot size is still over 14,000 square feet. And that ranges anywhere from around 5,000, 6,000 square feet up to, I believe the biggest house was over 20,000 square feet, and they're all allowed 10% lot coverage. So there was an attempt to have a code change done to allow for that to scale depending on the size of the house. And the code change would have allowed houses that were under 10,000 square feet up to 20%. The decision was made not to make that code change as an across the board decision. And so instead, every one of those is handled as its own request, and we're brought in front of you to make that request. The bottom line, though, is that there are certain things that every homeowner wants to be able to enjoy on their property. They want to be able to build as they see fit on their property and enjoy that to the extent that it doesn't harm anyone around them, it doesn't harm the city, and it's not going to create any problems. And that's exactly what's going on here. Is that Mr. Trainer and his family, his children, his 4 children, and his wife want to enjoy their backyard with a pool, with a patio, want to be able to eat meals out there, want to be able to swim in the pool. And they can't do so based on how the code is written for their specific property. The code creates that difficulty because it doesn't address it doesn't have any method of addressing smaller properties. It is designed specifically for the average lot, which I would note a 10% square coverage for a 14,000 square foot lot would allow 1,400 square feet of lot coverage, which is approximately what's being requested here. And so that's all we're trying to do is bring this into, and I mean, really, it's a fairness argument, but it's to allow Mr. Trainer to use his property as deemed fit, as other property owners in Olivet are allowed to do.
The last time this was when you were given the half of the pool footprint. Is there a reason why the whole thing wasn't approved? Is there a specific reason? that the previous variance wasn't granted for the whole plan.
You mean up to 17.5 or 20%?
Yeah, but what was given in January 2022.
In January 22 was the council change, or the council code change. So it allowed 50% of a pool's footprint to be counted towards that lot coverage. There was a previous hearing in front of the Board of Adjustment, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, in September of 2021. And I wasn't here for that. It wasn't part of the discussion, but the decision was to not grant the full 17.5, or it wasn't to grant the entire amount. That number, again, is a little skewed because there were some missing percentage or missing of that construction.
I do remember this very well.
Okay,
And my opinion was the 13.75% that we agreed to give them that variance was very. Which I thought was.
What efforts did you make to actually meet that 13.75?
So there's been
percent.
some changes to what's actually been, but ultimately, part of the problem here is that the code changes and the percentage that was initially granted, it didn't really lend itself to anything with the plan. So it was more of an all or nothing at that 13.75%. And so the changes themselves, Evan Tran and his family were very supportive of code changes such as allowing large. And so most of the efforts that have been made over the past 8 months or so were those code changes. And so we've now had that all fall
Right.
where it is. And again, with the numbers as they were presented in front of this board back in September, being a little off and we weren't exactly sure then what it was. The plans needed to be resubmitted anyway, and they require the variance, right? And so the goal was to have the board rehear with the correct numbers and seek that full 17.5.
Given that we're dealing with two issues then, one is 13.75, that was what we approved previously. The goal now is 17.5.
Correct, which is down from 20%.
Correct. So was there any effort to make to close that gap?
Again, it was done with the code change. It was supporting the smaller footprint for pools. It was supporting the increased lot coverage.
But you're still at 17.5% in other words.
Correct.
Actually, it looks like it increased.
So the pool size increased, but the actual square footage would have gone down because pools. So
No, I understand that, but the pool deck, the amount of area with the pool deck and all the other patios, that increased.
sure, so that it could fit around the pool as it was, and the pool was increased because that's the only code change that was allowed, and ultimately to decrease square footage.
But given the numbers we're looking at right now, was there any effort made to actually meet that 13.75%?
So the reason we're in front of you here today is because putting a 13.75% plan in front of you isn't desirable. It doesn't meet the goals that the Tran family is trying to do. And ultimately we're looking at that plan and saying, well, I guess we won't be able to use the property as we want.
You're looking at about a 300-foot variance,
Right, and so it would require.
or it would require cutting 300 square feet somewhere.
Right, and the question is, how do we cut it without losing the functionality that we want to enjoy in this rear lot?
So what you're saying is no effort was made.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because obviously there was lots of time that was spent poring over this, trying to make it work. What I'm saying is that there was no effort that was reasonable that the Tran family wanted to put in front of this board based on that 13.7.
So their position is 17.5 is the minimum they can get down to.
Right, because it would otherwise deny them enjoyable use of their rear yard. The pool itself, it increased, right, but again, it dropped to a half percent or 50% as far as it calculated towards that total lot coverage.
Should the pool deck also increase? I'm confused. If the pool increased, and the
So I think
so pool deck would have decreased.
I think in the PowerPoint, it showed that the pool deck was maybe 15 square feet smaller, or something of that nature.
Yeah, let's look at that previous.
The pool deck numbers are here from the original application. And then, yes,
I mean, looking at these, I guess you can just look at the numbers that we have here. Actually, if you go zoom back out with the summaries, it looks like the deck was 774 square feet. And then patio and deck now is 1,000.
So again, the deck that's included there was also included in the previous plan, but it wasn't actually calculated when submitted to this board. So I don't know I don't know how that error came about, but there was a request. You can see it on the top there, the new construction pad, 230 square feet. And then there's still the existing concrete pad that you can see in the lower plan, but not the upper plan. Something happened there where those full numbers weren't calculated in. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where 17.7% wasn't actually the request.
it was a request of the application. So I don't know if the pool contractors here, but that was, they requested the percentage. That's not set by staff.
I'm sure, I know, I
Just wanna
understand
make
that. I don't, again, I don't know where the error came up, and I certainly don't think it was Carlos. But just so that we're clear that this isn't, we're not adding things that weren't present in the last request.
Right. Help us again. I asked the question last time. In what way is the property unique and accept? That's our first criteria.
Right.
The grant of variance is that this would the narrowness or whatever of the plot itself is exceptional.
Sure. So what I'm making as far as that the practical difficulties argument goes is that the code itself is designed to deal with larger properties.
Correct.
So the practical difficulties and the uniqueness here, obviously there are other properties that this could apply to, but that's not the standard, right? It's how does the code make practical difficulties upon this land in specific? And it's because the code is designed to deal with 14,000 or more square foot lots. And
So
so
you're saying basically the code would have to change.
And which the board went and.
Understand.
right. So my argument isn't that the code would have to change, but rather than the code changing, these requests now can only go in front of the Board of Adjustment. So I'm asking that we look at this and say, well, in this specific instance, while across the board it wasn't correct for the city to allow up to 20% square foot coverage that is proper on this specific land. That's what I'm saying.
So you're saying in other cases, then if a lot falls below a certain square footage, the 20% would not apply?
All I can say is that it might not. But my point there for this specific situation, that 10% creates the hardship because it's designed to deal with larger properties. It's not designed to deal with this property. And so we're asking for a larger percentage so that Mr. Trannon and his family
Yeah,
can.
I'm not pressing you. I'm just trying to understand because again, we have to go back to the code issues. And what you're basically saying is the code is unfair to small properties.
Well, what I am saying is it's unfair to Mr. Trannon's property.
Correct.
It may include other properties as well. I think each one of those, and as obviously the planning and zoning and the council determined is that it's supposed to be decided on a case by case.
So would the council have to re-examine this issue? I mean, in very practical terms, if in fact the council or the ordinance as written discriminates against small lots, then we ought to be aware of that.
Well,
And the
it
code
was.
should not.
Oh, I apologize.
Go ahead. And the code should not penalize someone for having a small lot.
I certainly understand that, and I wasn't present for the council making the decision. My understanding is that they didn't want to make an across-the-board decision. And so it was something where it may be reviewable on a case-by-case basis, and it may be proper to grant on a case-by-case basis, but they didn't want that to be a baseline. And realistically here, we're talking about all accessory structures, right? And so I know I kind of glanced over this earlier. We're talking about ground level or below for what Mr. Trannon's trying to do. What we're worried about is 20% of the rear lot being covered with a mechanic shop or a big garage that's going to fill, and that affects everybody around it.
Gotcha.
And that's the problem, is we don't want to do that on an across, we don't want to grant 20% so that somebody can build some big gaudy structure in their rear lot. This is not that, right? This is increasing the property value. This is, it's, people want to live in neighborhoods where there are pools. That's something that's good for the neighborhood. It's good for the Trannon's property. And I think when we talk about 20% in general, we have to be worried about what's not good. which again, doesn't apply in this situation. So that's why the request is being made.
However, I will point something out too, is with smaller, lots, that's generally where we have most of our, water runoff issues. So there is a component.
And I will contend that we are willing to work with whatever drainage or runoff problems present themselves, to make sure that that's not an issue here.
May not be necessarily a problem for your particular property, but it's the cumulative effect for the entire neighborhood. So
Sure.
That's where it starts potentially affecting other people.
Sure, and again, we're willing to do whatever needs to be done in order to make that work. We don't want to add to any problem. Obviously, you can see that there was that collective effort on those rear lots to put in the drainage ditch with rock coverage to try to combat those issues. And so they'll continue to do so and work with this board and the city as needed. So we're not aware of any neighbors who have any issues.
Sir, you probably, before you speak, you do need to be sworn in.
My neighbors to the below, I guess, to the left of us have a fence already there, and the only way for the pool builder to get around is for them to remove their fence. So we've already talked to them. They're already willing to remove part of their fence during construction so we can get this built. I'm Evan Trainin, owner of 724 Cherry Tree Lane. So cut 300 square feet. So not allowing me, where's the number? 1554 to go to 1244. Is that what you're asking? Yes.
I'm still hung up with that.
So
17.5 now.
Right.
Where,
So what that does is it gives me the pool that I have up there, but then I have my existing concrete patio. And well, I have to shrink the pool deck around the pool a little bit. And I have to, because I have my existing patio there. So there's not much functionality around it. What happened in the whole thing from the first meeting leading up to today is Carlos made the suggestion that we go to the other board and talk to them about getting since the smaller lots are, in your words, discriminated against because of their size, and try to get them to increase. So what they did is, instead of, like you guys are saying, or Peter is saying, is that they didn't want to make the big move to allow for this because they were worried about garages or ponds or something else. They had a whole sorts of things they were worried about. So they didn't want to make that. So they decided to so their compromise was to shrink the pool or count the pool 50%, which helped more of the pools, the other pool problems that you're having, because those were still bigger lots. They were 11,000 square foot lots or 12,000. They were also having problems when I was having problems. So they helped them, but they didn't totally help me. So then Carlos also gave me another idea. Well, since you didn't use the full footprint of your house, you can build a roof structure over your patio, and then it wouldn't, as long as it's attached to the house, then it wouldn't count against you. That's when so I took you look at the first period, our picture, the deck was going towards the pool. And then I took it and I went down closer to my house, put a roof structure, but then I found the roof structure is going to cost me $20,000 to $40,000 for something I really don't want, just to get the pool deck that I want. And it just didn't make sense. So I'm allowed to put a roof structure and then get the patio that I want. But if I don't put the roof structure on and spend $20,000 to $40,000, then I can't get the patio or living space off of the pool and the pool size that I want. So there's my dilemma. Do I spend $20,000 to $40,000 for 300 square feet? Does that sound adequate? It's a lot. Pools are pretty expensive.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm trying to make my family happy, make something functional, something we can enjoy, and frankly, my neighbors to enjoy, because a lot of kids on our street, and we've got half of them. No, I'm just kidding. So there's a lot of kids and there's a lot of playing at our house, and the pool would be great. Any questions?
Still confused by the differences between the plans, and it looks like you added more.
So
And then this says existing. This is new patio. So have you had any flat work done?
no, that's existing patio has always been there. There was a lot of problems with that picture on the first meeting that we went over. And the pool builder was here who made that.
So this is accurate. You had no other flat work done.
Correct,
Sets this. So this.
correct. Yeah, you can look at the pictures. The pictures show the flat work there. See it there. But I'm just taking that patio and going towards the side, and I'm gonna put a back door in. So we can, because my basement's finished and people can go to the bathroom down there versus going through my house. So that's the other reason for the patio going that way also.
I have a question for Carlos. There have been no comments from any of the neighbors?
No, we did issue notices to those, and I believe at the first meeting, there were no comments. In this round, again, we received no comments. There was somebody, but they're no longer online.
And with the stormwater, I worked with my neighbor behind me that lives on Harbor. So we were the ones who put the rock thing going down the backyard of ours to connect with our neighbors' rock wall to move the water along. Well, it's one of it was Carlos has said it has to be done, and the pool builder knows it, and it is on there. Yes, yes, and we have stormwater retention. Yes.
What type of system are you planning on?
I don't know. The builder is gonna probably I'll work with whatever Carlos recommends, or
What is he basing that on? What's square footage with the rainfalls? I mean, what size? How is that being established?
I saw a picture of it. I don't know if it's in any of these. Do you have?
No,
your-
not that's been submitted in. Correct. At any time that it'll be supplemented depending on what the decision of the board is. So at the current square footage, anything over 1,200 square feet, which right here would be 1,523, is required on-site detention. And it has to be designed by to meet the MSD standards. So
So what is that?
that's a 20-minute, I was getting confused, 20-minute storm,
So it's gonna be something
like, or flow well, or some dry detention basin.
Right.
And
Any
if it
idea-
goes under 1,200 square feet, then it could be, the continued use of the trench or some type of bioswale, rain garden.
And I'm curious about where that was being. where that was
That's
taking
something they're
place.
gonna have to resolve. I haven't had. Correct,
That's part of the normal procedure.
correct. Mhm.
So the city has to approve stormwater plans for any project, right?
Yeah.
Over 1200.
At this point, yeah. And I don't believe that there's any request, and I didn't inquire, but that there was no contention regarding to what the code would require on the stormwater detention.
Only place that looked like you could see it would be. that map.
Yes.
Parcel line, and that water is supposed to kind of migrate out
Mm-hmm.
into the soil. You're probably gonna have water issues.
We've got to talk to them. In there's a drain system in those steps, and that bottom down there, a drain system with a pump and a I told him I want a battery backup because I know.
If you retain it, that might be fine for the water coming down
Mhm.
here. But when you put in a retaining, water retaining system in here, it's gonna migrate out to the surrounding soils. And then that water's gonna come in from your blocks, because I'm sure you're gonna have walls up.
Yeah,
You're gonna have excess, more water. You're cutting into it.
right. Well,
And
yeah, it's
right
ground.
Behind that Versa block wall, you're gonna have a water retention system that is allowing water to go out into the surrounding soil. So now you're gonna have, that soil is gonna be saturated with water, and it's gonna, water's gonna then migrate through your Versa block system into that basement stairwell.
So you're saying I'm gonna have water problems in my stairwell, in my
Right.
basement? Oh, I will make sure my builder knows about that and do the proper,
And I'm just, that looks like that's something added. Is that something that's truly needed?
with the steps in the bathroom, the steps in the back door.
The steps, because that goes down to the basement, right?
Correct, yes. There's no door there right now. So I'm
Right.
putting in a back door.
Right. And I'm just wondering if that's a need versus a want.
Well, and it's obviously, nothing will be done that's not approved by the city. The stairs themselves aren't part of the square footage
The
analysis.
city's not gonna approve that, for you. It's gonna be the responsibility of your engineer.
Gotcha.
Understood.
You just need to be aware.
Thank you.
You got a question?
Just have a few comments. So it sounds like you're, based on what I'm hearing. So it sounds like based on what I've been hearing here and the narrative that you provided, I mean, all these requirements seem to be met. I mean, they were met before. It's just a matter of discretion as far as what percentage of variance we would be able to provide or that we'd feel comfortable with. And I would just like to know, Carlos, maybe you know this, as far as the larger properties that do get variances, what percentage are they sort of going over that 10% threshold? Because, I mean, if you do kind of do the math and apply those variances to this situation, we may be able to go a little bit higher. I just don't know like what the comparables are in terms of other lots that have asked for variances.
It'd be hard. I mean, the 10% cap applies to all lots and all of that. And it's based on a percentage, so it's proportional to the lot. The larger the lot, the larger the square footage that is permitted. Since its adoption, I'm not aware of any variance requests to the 10%. It's the only
I've-
one.
No other homeowners have come and asked for variances
No,
for their pool or for accessory
not to
structure?
exceed the 10% total, combined total. Just to make sure. So,
I don't think I agree with that.
so let's say if you have a lot under 10,000 square feet, so the pools, there have not been any requests to go in excess of the 10% cap.
Okay, so 1,000 square feet, I
Yeah.
guess.
Correct. Mhm. Now, and then in the next tier, which is like the 10 to 20, they're permitted more since they got more area. That 10% proportionally allows for more surface area. And nobody in that group has exceeded that 10% cap. And then as you get to the 20, which 20,000 square feet or half acre or more. And again, I mean, and it is a larger number, but they also have a larger lot in there. So, the intent of the 10%, instead of putting a numerical cap saying 10,000 square feet or less, you have 500 square feet. And 10 to 20, you have 800 square feet. And 20 plus, you're allowed 1,200 square feet. Instead of trying to just come up with a numerical value, it was based on a percentage. So therefore, it's proportional to the lot size.
Yeah, so I mean, I think here, I mean, the lot being so small
Mhm.
and the average lot being 14, 15,000, almost double the size of this lot. I mean, the math
Right.
just is not working out here. And I don't think that a homeowner, I mean, the lots were permitted lots to build on, right? To be able to
Mhm.
build a pool conceivably and things like that. I mean, with a larger family, 5, 6 people, I mean, you can't really reduce the pool size because people are, it's unsafe. And then the deck size too, I mean, you probably don't have a lot of leeway there. I mean, you have your existing patio there, that's already 200 square feet. So that's already counted against them, right? So to me, it just doesn't seem, I think, to me,
And
it
it's
prevents serious
understandable.
practical difficulties to be able to
It
have any
is.
sort of pool.
But the underlying issue in that is again, the two components to when you have site coverage requirements. One is to maintain open space, green in there, but secondly is to mitigate and handle stormwater. So even as a smaller lot, the more improvement that you place on that lot, the more difficult it is to control and mitigate stormwater.
But the stormwater is not like part of this application, like that analysis
correct.
is not being done. So, I mean, is this the right time to vote on this when we don't have the stormwater analysis of an engineer and opinion?
Well, it wouldn't
to
be
go-
anything that comes before the board, and I don't believe that the petitioner is contesting the requirements to provide the
No,
stormwater
okay.
retention. Now, as they get further into this, they may find that, well, it's going to be harder to fit in. But I mean, somehow engineering wise, they can make it work. That's going to be on their end to figure that out to accommodate. And it's only to accommodate this, the surface area that's being generated by the new improvements. So I'm not asking them to resolve the whole issues with the house or anything like that. It's just for the new surface areas that are being provided.
And on the plans that were provided, the pool size seemed to have increased by like 70 square feet.
Mhm.
Is that right? So like if that went down, is there any flexibility to come down 100 square feet on the pool, like closer to what it was originally presented?
If you take 70 square feet out of the pool, then you'd shrink the deck, I guess, a little bit, but the existing retaining wall is already there. So I don't know what 70 square feet to the pool is going to do. Plus, that would only take off 35 square feet, or I guess, of usage, because I get 50% of it.
Yeah.
It just go on what Carlos says, getting, if I put a roof over the patio, I would have no problem doing this. If I just put it, so it is nothing to do with stormwater, because if I put a roof on it, you still got the same stormwater problems. So I'm allowed to do this if I put a roof on it. This is what I can't get my head around, is that I'm allowed to do this if I can put a roof on it. If I don't put a roof on it, I can't do it. And that just doesn't seem right.
The new concrete section here, the 276 square feet, there's not,
That
Any
can be
possibility to reduce
I
that?
could
Yeah.
absolutely reduce that. I would
Okay.
like to keep some, because I'd like to go from the existing patio to the steps. I could shrink that back down to where it's in line with the existing patio, so it's a straight line. That would be no problem.
What is that
Yeah.
distance? That is a total of 20.6 minus 16. That's 4.5 feet. Times, what's the width of that? Does anybody know?
22.5.
No, that's the whole thing.
That's the
isn't
whole thing. Roughly, I'd say 10. 11, not
it?
sure.
Yeah, it Looks like half.
Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, the walkway there is counted towards-
We're not counting the walkway. We made some
11 times 44 square
interpretations
feet.
that the walkways are.
Even go 11.5, and it's 51, 52. Perfect.
Well, the more green, the better. I think the bigger variance, the more concrete, as long as, I think that's where the stormwater issue comes in. And if that gets approved, where it can handle stormwater. Or the lot, the more concrete, the more runoff, the more issues with your neighbors. So I guess the stormwater issue would have to be approved for the whole plan to go through,
Absolutely.
right?
We're
Yeah.
willing to do what we need to
Yeah.
do to make it work. Whole separate argument. Yeah, we'll work with we'll work with Carlos to do it. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Have you, I do. Have you looked, Carlos, excuse me now a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Have you looked at all of putting in some, instead of having the pool deck wrap around the entire pool, but using some sort of rain garden, if you will, kind of on the backside of it? I've seen a lot of pools that have, the deck kind of wraps around, maybe 80 or 60% of it. And then you have kind of like, grass or, kind of a garden area.
There's an existing retaining wall in the back there that was intended to stay.
No, I agree, but in between the pool and the retaining wall. Instead of having a pool deck there, you could have a rain garden. I've seen a lot of pools done that way,
Less concrete.
I brought that up to my wife and she did not like that idea. So I don't have much of a choice.
And the reality is that there obviously needs to be some usable deck. And so right now, based on the shape of the pool, and this is how the contractor, the builder put it together, there's that one usable corner where you could have a chair and maybe a table, but there's 6 people in this house and the other kids around too. And there needs to be other flat space, nothing else for people who are wet to stand there without.
I'm not talking about the whole thing. I'm just talking.
Yeah, just the one side. I
I
understand.
understand, but it was the entire thing together, and cutting too much of that off, and it again, doesn't.
Anyone else online?
No, sir. Let me just double check one more time. There are no attendees.
Thank you.
I'd like to close the public session. Pause. Internet.
Joe, I agree. I mean, I think that makes sense. However, I will say what really kind of does bug me is the fact that you put a roof on it. It would be fine. I am bugged. I am bothered by that. It is, but you got to remember too, stormwater issues are always around the smaller lots where they're congested. And that becomes.
point. Yeah, I think, I totally agree. And at our last meeting that we had when you guys were here, I really felt we tried to do the most fair thing with it the best we could, even going back and trying to get the ordinance reworked itself. If any more, I mean, I'm not. Kind of big, look too big up for it.
I remember the last one, and I remember I was pushing for 15%. You know, I mean, I know I was on that, you know, kind of side. And I know
was
we
10,
split.
and I thought, okay, well, that's, I remember after I'm like, oh, I went more than I thought. I mean, I really felt it. And I'm like,
I actually felt at that time, as we were doing it, it's not up to us to come up with some percentage.
we did.
We
And
did,
I-
and I think that's,
Extremely fair.
I don't think we should be doing that. We shouldn't be giving opinions of what the board might approve if things will change. I thought that was an off the rails discussion.
Let me just throw this out. They put a roof on it. They'll have the same drainage issues. So is that, you know, is that fair? You see where I'm going? So that's the.
An issue. When I was on the years, it was always the corner lots we had. I mean, it was just repeating. But I mean, to where we knew we had an issue. And I don't know how long it's been. Number one of it, but then that came. So it's not like it happens all the time.
Which is the reason why this comes in front of
Right.
our.
No, I understand, and that's why I said the last time I think we granted the variance, and then we went back and they granted it, you know, an additional variance based on the lot size.
There's not a lot of support for my recommendation referred to the council. I think there needs to be some general consideration of small lot. And I think the points you bring up are valid ones. Some water, all these sorts of things, but we are faced with a reality. And the reality is that there's a certain percentage of lots in our that are very small. And maybe the codes don't apply equally to all of them. I don't know. It ought to be at least looked at, so it has the appearance at least.
Can I ask you a question, Carlos?
Yes, sir.
Carlos, you said, you know, if they attach the roof, they could gain, you know, so I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not being clear. The original house was less than what they could have built. on the
Correct.
lot.
Mhm.
By how much?
I think in discussion with Mr. Trainin, it probably somewhere between 200 to 500 square feet. I don't recall the exact number in there. And that's part of our role, is to try to find solutions. Pardon? Yeah, is to try to find solutions of, well, how can we make this work within the code framework? And, you know, that's where that suggestion came in. You know, it would be compliant with the code in there. And that's, you know, part of our role is try to find ways to make it happen.
Can you help me
on behalf of our
understand how the
residents.
roof remedies this problem?
Because there is also separately within the code, you know, applicable to all residential properties, a maximum square footage for a house footprint. And in this case, I believe within this lot, it's 45% not to exceed 2,500 square feet. And I think Mr. Train is correct. The house footprint for this lot is 2,000 square feet. So they built a smaller house than what the code would permit. So by, you know, in the future, they can add on an additional 500 square feet to this house in there. And that was one of the ways, you know, in talking with Mr. Train, it's like, well, that's one way to try to get around it. Then the issue comes to, well, what is what kind of roof do I have to attach? Well, it has to be, you know, structurally tied to the building itself. which means then it has to have a proper footing in place. So it's not like they can put a canopy or yeah, a tent or something like that. It is structural, and it has to be designed by an architect, so yeah, there is
If it was a trellis.
even with that, it still has to be attached to the house. So we've allowed some trellises where they are not attached to the house and they count as accessory structures. In there, that wouldn't have helped Mr. Trainum. But having something physically attached to the home, then it becomes part of that home footprint.
Have you ever seen a trellis attached to the house?
Yes, we've had one on Grayley in there, and then one where it was the one on St. Alfred done where it was detached. I've seen both of them where it was just 4 feet from the house, but it counted towards the accessory structure side, and they didn't have a coverage issue. The Grayley issue was they wanted it attached to the house in there as part of a deck in there. But again, it wasn't for the purposes of a coverage issue. That was the design. Mhm.
And the new plans at 17.5% is 325 square feet.
Roughly.
Is that the difference? Six.
Yeah. Bear with me 1 second.
But yet he could build another 500 square feet on his primary structure. on the
Attached to,
property.
yeah, the home can be expanded an additional 500 square feet under the code. And again, I'm not specifically sure on that number, but we're within.
What was the 13.75 square footage? Yeah, but what does that equate to? I was just looking at, kind of taking the original 10%, 884 plus 500, that was 1384. Yeah.
It's based on the only true survey I have. Yeah, that the lot area is 8,835 square feet. So.
If you take off that other spot right there, that's roughly 50. And 10. Yeah, shrinking that patio down and then just adding 500 to the original 10%. And 110 square feet. They had a roof, they'd still need a variance of 110 square feet. And that equates to roughly 2%.
Well, I'd like to get a motion on this.
There you go. It should be on your dais monitors. All motions have to, of course, be to affirm.
Who's like to read it? Yep. You want to?
I'll be happy to read it.
Thanks.
The motions, okay, hold on. The motion to grant a variance not to exceed 17.5% for the combined area of all accessory structures at the property addressed at 724 Cherry Tree Lane, as illustrated in the plans labeled V18, version 18, dated April 4th, 2021, as prepared by Liquid Assets. Is that supposed to be 2022? Carl?
No, it's actually the date they have on that plan. It says is the correct version. But
Just
the
wanted
plan
to
date has
confirm.
stayed the same.
I
Yes,
just
I
wanted to confirm.
appreciate it.
I second the motion.
1
have
second,
any
I
further
do
discussion?
have to conduct it as a roll call.
Do you? I mean, if you do, don't let's, I mean, the motion has been, you know, we haven't called it all yet or called for vote.
Right, right.
Elementary rules allow you. So we want-
I know, I'm just still hung up on that roof.
I am too, but it's. I feel for it, but there is other things that they can do to make it. What? Not build the deck is big. I mean, even you said, you know, well, my wife doesn't like that. There's still ways of making it work.
I think we gotta be careful right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we putting it to a vote?
Ready? Board Member Weber,
Yes.
Board Member Malik. Board Member Cicero,
This is-
Board Member Dragell,
Yes.
Chairman Gerstein.
No.
The motion fails 3-2.
Sorry about that.
This was on the table. Unfortunately.
Like I don't know how we can go about doing this, referring to the BOA concerns about the small lot issue. I think you can go across the board, it can be another issue, at least examine it.
And we will bring that to the commission and
You
the
may,
council's
you may
attention.
come, you know, the whole idea is silly, but it seems to me it's just from their perspective, we should look at it.
You need adjourned.
Chairman, I'd like to note that Karen's, this is her last meeting with us. Not sure if it's retiring or not. I did look back in the records. The oldest invoice I could find was back in April of 2013, but I think it was even longer than that, so. So we do appreciate it. I think so. So,
Let's adjourn. the meeting
Yes.
And
all right, so
turn off the, wait.